Hey, Ty, it's Rich from the auto auction.
Hey, what's up, Rich?
Quick question.
Yeah?
When it comes to managing your team of drivers and all their personalities, egos, and whatever the hell's going on, what's your go-to approach?
Oh, wow. How much time you got? Maybe meet me at the gate?
I'm Rich Levene, and this is Meet Me at the Gate, where we're not just talking theory, we're tackling real-world problems head-on, driving solutions that supercharge productivity and team dynamics. Every episode is a journey towards improvement, empowering you, the manager, to lead with innovation and confidence. Join us to transform everyday roadblocks into highways for success. I'm fired up. Are you fired up?
I'm fired up because I got some we got to talk about employees. We got to talk about drivers.
Drivers. I love talking about drivers. We can talk about drivers specifically, or are we going to talk about employees?
I'd say probably more employees. My conversation always leads back to the same thing. So I think it's applicable, in my opinion, this is where you come in because you're the leadership guy, but I think it's applicable to dealerships, auctions, transport companies, repo companies, lending companies, anybody that's in our little world, right?
Absolutely.
So in car hauling, the way I built it is used car dealers, auto auctions, and repo yards. Used cars, repos, auctions. So one of the things that I've learned was everybody wants their cars as fast as possible. And there's reasons behind that. In transportation, traditionally, as a driver, you are what we call a commission. Your industry standard's 25% commission. So whatever you put on that truck dollars, gross dollars, you'll take as a driver 25%. One of the things that I always try to encourage my drivers to do, which by the way, they're employees too, not 1099, but we used to pay commission. So 25%, we got that. Okay, and we run it, let's just say within a 300-mile radius, really less, probably more like 200, but we're fast. There's a lot of cars to move. You got 20 trucks, you got dealers, you got auctions, you got repos, go. The name of the game is to become the UPS of car hauling. So if you bought it today, you can have it tomorrow before close. That was always my goal. I didn't walk around and say that very loud, but I did encourage that idea, that concept, foundation to the team of drivers. So one of the ways that you can get ahead as a driver is to, once you're dispatched a load, is to hurry up and go get it loaded, and get it delivered. Because once you're done with that, my job is to make sure that you stay busy so that we can pay for that $300,000-$400,000 truck that you're driving. So one of the things that you'll see, or I saw, is drivers will get upset because Chuck is doing more. And so it's kind of interesting to watch the dynamic of drivers, truck drivers, car haulers, which by the way, car hauling is a skill, it's a trade. Once you learn how to haul cars, you can go anywhere and do it, and people will pay you money to do it. It's not an easy job, but if you're good at it and you understand the game, you can do very well for yourself. Are you following me so far?
I'm following you. It's a skill.
Okay.
You're teaching people a skill.
Yeah, you are. And you're also at the same time, okay, not only do I need you to haul cars, but here's how I need you to interact with everybody. From the check-in guy to the checkout guy to the lot porter to the used car manager to the repo guy. This is how we interact, and this is probably why that person's upset today. This is probably why they're giving you the evil eye. So educating everybody on these basic fundamental things of what you'll encounter as a car hauler with a check-in, a checkout, a repo, an auction, a dealer. Here's how you respond. Here's how you react. Thank you. I appreciate your business. If there's nothing more here, I'm going to get my truck and I'm going to go get another load. So I get a phone call. Hey, how come Chuck's going back to get another load? I thought you was going to give it. Well, where are you? Well, I'm still in Joplin. No, okay. Chuck's already been to Kansas City and back, and you're still in Joplin, and Chuck's already in Kansas City. Why am I going to have the load sit there knowing that the dealer wants it? So anyway, you get into this, I don't even know the word for it. What do you call that? Jealousy, maybe?
A shit show. So in reality, or I think what you're leading up to, and it's something that happens every day. So if you're a manager on an auction, if you're managing whatever piece, or if you're managing trucks, or you're at the dealership and you're bringing up a dynamic I swear happens more often than not. You've got somebody on your team that's jealous over somebody else. They may have a better skill set. Maybe they have more strengths. Now they're on the team and you got jealousy going, which creates what I just said a minute ago, a shit show. So as a manager, we got to figure out how we get through this. Am I picking up what you're putting down so far?
There you go. You're doing better than I am. So before you solve the problem, I'm going to tell you how I would deal with it, and then you take over.
How do you know I can solve the problem?
Auction. Well, you wrote a book. That ought to. I mean,
that makes me an expert.
Book, you're the authority.
Absolutely.
You're the authority.
All right, I appreciate that.
Authority,
so we won't get to the book.
We
won't get to the book yet. And just in case anybody's listening, the book's called "You're Doing It Wrong: Stop Managing and Start Leading," which I'm going to help you through because maybe people are managing and I need to get them to start leading.
Yeah. So as a leader, me, 20 drivers, couple, up to 10 owner operators, car pullers at every auction, 10 people in the office running accounting and dispatching and all the things that we do, I would get the call from the other driver who's not happy because he passed Chuck and Chuck's getting another load, which he feels entitled to maybe, or he feels it's owed to him maybe, or he just doesn't like Chuck maybe, I don't know. But he's calling and he's upset. So my job now is to try to figure out how to, because I don't want to go find another car hauler guy. They're hard to find and they're hard to train. So I don't want to go find another car hauler guy. So my number one objective is to make sure that the guy that's calling that's upset, we'll call him Bob.
So you got Bob and Chuck.
Upset because Chuck's, by the way, Chuck is a mover. I mean, Chuck is, his number one motive in life is to see how many cars he can haul because he knows that translates into dollar bills. Okay. So that's Chuck for you. I mean, this guy's just hammering. Solid dude, the old farmer guy, just hit him with a steel bar and I guarantee it'll bend. That kind of guy. Doesn't talk to anybody, not a friendly guy. Just give me the work, I'll go get it done. And that's frustrating to a lot of people too, the other drivers, because Chuck doesn't even want to stand around and talk. All he wants to do is hurry up and load his cars. And that one time, Chuck, I helped him pull his cars, and he didn't hang around to help me pull my car. I helped him pull all of his cars. He loaded, and he left. So nobody likes Chuck, right? I like Chuck because nobody likes Chuck, but I really like Chuck because Chuck, I can count on Chuck. So here's how the conversation would go. Oh, Chuck is producing. And Chuck, my dealers, my auctions love Chuck. Because when I say Chuck's got the load, they know it'll be there. And if it's not there, it's because something blew up, right? Just don't play. So I mean, I use Chuck as that example. Chuck was definitely rough around the edges when it comes to relationship, but Chuck knew I'm here to work. So Bob calls. Bob's upset because Chuck's making all these runs and he's got the 9 cars pick up at the auction, drop all 9 cars at one dealer. And how come I've got 8 cars with 4 stops and I don't get to get there's nothing fair about this. Right?
Yeah.
So somebody's upset and it sounds like he's got some valid reason to be upset. So as we go through the conversation, I try to find out what specifically does Bob hate about Chuck? Because there's a problem here. So let's just say it's his hair. I really don't like his hair. That's what bothers me the most. Okay. So whatever that might be, I said, let's talk about the fundamentals. What are the fundamentals? You only get paid if you haul a car. Yeah, that's why I'm mad, because I don't get to haul it. You're giving it all to Chuck. Right. But let's look at, why does Chuck get these cars? Because he works like an animal? Yeah, he does. He doesn't damage them. He works like an animal. But let's go a little deeper than that. Why do I really like Chuck? Because Chuck is taking care of our client, our customer. The guys that are paying us are what enables you to drive that $300,000-$400,000 truck, and it also enables us to have a paycheck. So we have to take care of our dealer. Now, I appreciate you, and I don't want to lose you, but I need you to maybe try to pick up the pace, and I'll talk to Chuck and see if, next time you help Chuck pull all of his cars, I'll have him help you stick around and and we would do that kind of stuff, and we would work through it. But it always, to me, comes back to who is our customer and how are we serving them? Because the better, in my opinion, this is where you come in, where am I wrong, what am I doing, what am I thinking? If we all understand one thing, who is our customer, we should all be aiming to please that customer, regardless of who gets the load. Because that guy, if that dealer's happy, if that auction's happy, he's going to call us again next week. Because he sells cars and he has to go replace those cars. So these are the kinds of conversations I would have with my drivers to try to help them better understand. It's not that I hate you. It's not that you're bad at what you do. It's there's a pace that we have to continue to move to make sure that Mr. Dealer is satisfied and Mr. Auction is satisfied, because these are the people we're dealing with nonstop. That's how I do it.
So before we get too carried away, I need to learn a little bit more about Bob. So tell me about Bob. Okay. Is he a longer-term employee? So Chuck's fairly new, right? Chuck in the truck is a newer employee?
Both of them, yeah, Chuck in the truck, they've both been here the same amount of years, 7 years.
7 years.
Which,
so
by the way, that's great in trucking. The turnover usually in trucking is like 98%, whereas mine, I flipped it. Mine was 2%.
So what about
Chuck and Bob have been here a long time.
So what about Bob? Does he show up every day?
Bob shows up every day. He's a little late and he's a little slow. Chuck shows up early every day. Now, Chuck, okay, let's see here. Let me make sure I got this right. You asked me how long Chuck has been. They've both been there forever, but you're right. Now that I think about it, they both have stayed with me forever, but you're right. It was Chuck had come on after Bob. So Bob actually technically had seniority over Chuck. We didn't play the seniority game, or tried not to. Tried to keep it as fair as I could. Yeah. But yeah, Chuck definitely had less seniority than Bob, and Bob was not happy about this. You're right.
So
Now that you said it.
unfortunately,
They both have been there forever.
and this is a common problem, whether you're trucking, auction, repos, in an office, just about anywhere, this is a problem that goes on. Somebody's seniority, they feel like they've been there longer, they should have more rights, more say, more whatever. But in reality, what it is it boils down to a couple of different things. Based on what you're telling me, Chuck is going to be, because I put everything into the disc profile, he's going to be more along the red, the dominant.
Hey, wait,
paced.
before you go farther, sorry, tell me what your disc profile is. You use that term a lot.
I do use the disc profile. So I categorize or try to bucket behaviors into 4 types: D, I, S, and C. D is dominant, which sometimes are referred to as the red personality. Be bright, be brief, be gone. That's what Chuck sounds like. I is inspirational or inspiring. Think sunshine yellow. They're the yellows. Their message is, or their motto is, be sure to include me. Don't forget about me. I'm right here. And then you have S's, which are the steadies. Think of green. I like to use peacekeepers because they're usually quiet. They don't say a whole lot. They're not going to disrupt a lot, but they're steady. And their motto is always show me you care. And then the last one is C, which is for compliance. And those are the people that I put them in blue because sometimes they're ice cold blue and they want everything to be categorized. It's got to fit into a bucket. Based on what you're telling me, I've been categorizing these 2 people to try to build a profile on how I'm going to approach and talk to them. Bob, who's been there a long time, sounds like a green, a steady to me. He's a slower pace, shows up late, but he's there. He's getting the job done. He's just not as fast. Then you got Chuck on the other side, who's there early, fired up, ready to get going. And that screams red all the way through. He's ready to rock and roll. So here's the thing. You got 2 people on your team and you got to, nailed it. So what you're trying to do is your vision is, you said it earlier, is UPS. We're going to have them there by tomorrow at the end of business for your deal. Okay. So that is your vision as the manager. So whether you're leading the whole show, just a team or what have you, that is your vision. So now we got to start breaking this down into other things. Number 1, I would probably say, all right, you're going to have to environment where they belong. And you can't do that just by a broad spectrum of just saying, hey, you got cars, get them on the truck, get them moving, because that's not going to work. So you're going to have to start out, probably what I would say is with individual coaching. You need to have one-on-ones with your people and you need to talk to them. And when I do individual coaching with people, I ask 3 questions. First question is, how are things going? Second question is, what's not working so well? And the last question is, how can I help you? So now I start building a personalized coaching approach, and I can adapt my style to fit the individual needs, their strengths, their weaknesses, their operations, whatever it is that they need, and recognize that each team member is different, but they all are going to support you. So now we got to go back and figure out, all right, we don't have a problem with Chuck getting the cars on time would be my guess, right? Chuck's going to deliver UPS on time every day. Bob? Got it. Bob's probably going to be, there's some days you're probably calling like Bob, like you're looking at your watch going, we got 45 minutes left, Bob.
Yep.
And this is predictable. Yes. So you start being able to predict this behavior, and now you can start going back and working with it. Now you build a coaching plan with Bob, and you start explaining to Bob why it's important that he's on time. Hey, I'm trying to grow the business. We're all trying to grow the business. Here's why you're not getting as many cars as him. You're not moving as many. And then so you ask him, hey, so Bob, what's working well? He's going to tell you what's not working well. Oh, that Chuck in the truck's not working well. He's getting all my loads. He's taking all my cars. I'm not getting there fast enough. And you keep putting pressure on me to be there by 5 o'clock. Okay, great. He said his piece. You've heard it. Now you ask him, Bob, how can I help you? He's going to come up with something and he's going to tell you. And as long as you continuously do this, I would say at least bi-weekly, if you can afford to do it once a week, have these conversations, and then your team will start coming back. And then what that's going to do, it's going to create empowerment and responsibility. And you're going to be able to see Bob's growth go. Bob, you're doing great. You start rewarding him, and you keep having these questions, and you're going to start overcoming the hurdles. And now we can bridge the gap between how move as many cars as Chuck when Chuck is a super high mover.
It's funny you're saying this because this is what I did, and inadvertently, not knowing about this, not knowing about you're doing it wrong, but not even knowing you. Now, what I would do is I would, talk to both separate. And then eventually the ultimate goal, which usually came together, would be I put Bob and Chuck on the same direction and then make them run together for 2 days. But I'll get with them before this happens. And I'll usually get with Chuck. Here's the thing. I need you to show Bob you love. Just show him kindness, show him you love him, help him out. Let him shadow you. Hey, Bob, I know you got a problem with Chuck, but here's what we're going to do. Here are the things that I see in Chuck that I like. I want you to go and see if you see the same thing I see and report back to me. And you guys are going to run together for 5 loads this week, and I need to see if anything changes. You would be shocked how many times that I pulled that off, and by the end of the month, these guys are talking on the phone for 4 hours a night about their day or their family, and then 6 months later, Bob and Chuck are having barbecue at Bob's house with his family. I mean, crazy stuff like that. So I hear what you're saying. That's what I'm trying to say.
So what you just did there is you forced them to develop their listening skills probably first, or their active listening skills or communication skills, but you also forced them to open up their critical thinking and to understand what it's like to walk in or be somebody else. What is it like to ride in Chuck's truck? Chuck's going. Now, I already know well enough, just based off the behavior of Chuck, what you've told me, Chuck is not a saint. We're not talking about St. Charles here. I'm sure Chuck has a lot of his own shortcomings. And so you put a fast-paced person with a slow-paced person, and now reverse the roles. Okay, now let's make Chuck go ride with Bob. What can Chuck learn from riding with Bob? And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of things, and it's going to drive him crazy. And now you're reversing those roles, which creates a growth mindset. So now you're encouraging the different challenging viewpoints as opportunities for growth. And then you're stressing the importance of praising each other's efforts and leveraging strategies. So let's fast forward this. You got a fast-paced driver, slow-paced driver. You need to get a bunch of cars moved in a hurry. Who are you going to call?
Big boy Chuck.
Yep. All right. Now you've got a load that needs careful care, lots of caution. Traffic is going to be a nightmare. It's not going to be easy to back the truck into the lot to get the cars loaded. You're going to have to be patient with the auction getting them loaded. Who are you going to send? Going to send Bob, I would think. Absolutely. So now you're playing to the strengths. So now you set these people down, and that's what we've got to do as managers is look at what the opportunities are. How can we help and leverage their strengths? Hey, Bob, I need you to go down here. Why do you always send me to that place? It takes me forever to back my truck in and load my truck up. Bob, because you're cautious, you're careful, you're steady. I need this job done, and you can do it well. Go get it done for me. And he's going to do it. Now you're leveraging strengths.
Well, and you're right. And that's one thing that I did do a lot. It was like, look, I need to do this load because you're the only guy I can count on. You're the only guy I can count on to make sure that this goes right. You've got incredible people skills, and they love you down there. I know it's the crappiest run that we've got, but if you take care of this one for me, they're just across the street. I got 9 sitting there ready to go, coming back to right here. So it'll work out really good for you. You mind doing? Oh, okay, great. You kind of start using like you're saying. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, what you're doing is you're empowering them. They might not understand this, but you're empowering them and you're giving them responsibility and you're giving them trust because you're saying, look, you're the guy that can do this best. I need you to go do that. And now they start to feel encouraged and they start to feel like they're part of a team. Now they start taking ownership for their role. And then guess what? They're going to come back and they're going to do it again. But what I want to go back to is what the curiosity. So you get these two guys, you said you've done it several times in your career where you get a couple of people riding a truck that are totally different. And then after the end of a month of riding together, they're best friends on the phone for 4 hours. That's fascinating.
Oh, yeah. Happened. I can count for sure 5. That's really a true story. And by the way, I didn't ever usually put them in a truck together. They both drove their own truck, but I made all the loads to make sure they were picked up at the same place and dropped off in the same, maybe not the same exact, but the same town. So, and what happens in that scenario, this is really cool. You see this, or I saw it all the time. I really don't want to do that. So look, guys, if you can make this happen, I'll be happy to buy you lunch when you get down there and get unloaded at Los Palmos, Tawnytown, Arkansas, and get the number 7. The deep fried burrito. Okay. So they're like, yeah. And they start salivating. There's like water coming out of their mouth. Yeah.
Heart attack on a plate.
Heart attack on a plate. And so the results of this turned out to be really impressive because, like I was telling you earlier, I mean, at some point in this relationship, maybe a year, Chuck's going to Bob's house. Bob's married. Bob has a couple kids. Chuck's a single guy. But Chuck's going over to Bob's house and they're having a barbecue and watching the football game. Now, it's not every weekend. It's not every night. It's none of that. But to see the progress where, I could have just said, why don't you shut up and go do your job? I mean, really could have done that without even thinking twice about it. But the understanding that I really need these people. They're very valuable to me. And, I used to tell all my drivers this all the time. I say, who's more important, the customer or you? And they would always say, the customer. And I'd say, no, it's you. If I don't have you, we won't have a customer.
Good
so
answer.
We need you.
Yeah.
It's the right answer. Well, and people, I think there's a thing in business where we kind of get confused. We think it's all about the customer, and that's very true. But if I don't have the people, how can I have the customer? If I don't have the people to get the job done, how can I have a customer? It just doesn't make sense.
You're getting me wound up now.
Well, I mean, I run into business. You own a business. You run in circles with people that own businesses, and especially in car hauling world. Okay, you run into guys that own more than a couple trucks that have drivers. They do not have that mentality. I'm telling you, it shocked me every time. I was like, So how do you deal with the driver who's a pain in the neck? I fire his ass. I tell him to get the boo out of here. And I'd say, oh, no wonder you got crappy trucks. You got crappy drivers. I talk to your drivers all the time. They hate your guts, you know? I mean, these are real stories. Like, I would really tell business guys that own this. So I think having not known you read the book, I feel like some of the things that you're saying, I maybe did on accident to try to get, and it always, I've said this already 100 times, but to me, it always came back to my guys. Look, you're the most important thing. You're the most valuable asset we have, even more than these trucks. I mean, if I didn't have you, who would drive the truck? This is the guy who owns all the trucks telling me, so go ahead.
So what you've done is you've hit on the things that I've talked about, and we've talked about them in the earlier podcasts, and that's the 4 Ps: plans, processes, profits, and production. And it's like they put those things first before people. Well, there's actually 5 Ps, but you got to have them in the right order. If you don't put people first, you're not going to get those other 4 things. But everybody wants to put those 4 things, and then they take the people for granted. And if they would just look at, if they would invest in, like you said, they don't take care of the trucks. Well, if they're not taking care of trucks, they're not going to take care of their people. Now, I've also seen organizations where they will do routine maintenance on equipment, like religiously, like service plans, the whole 9 yards. They got checklists, and they're going through and they're checking off. Did we grease all the zerks? Did we lube the chain? Did we, everything? Did we check all this stuff? And they want it because they don't want their machine to go down. Machine goes down, they lose production. But your people are your largest asset. If your people go down, you lose production. Build a checklist for your people. And that's where I go back to the 3 things. My checklist has 3 things on it. How are things going? What's not working well? Yeah. And how can I help you? There's your checklist. And you'll fill out the whole checklist. Now, here's the other thing that you did that amazes me. And this is where my nerdness comes out, the science side. You put those 2 guys together to go make that run together. So what they created something that they each had in common. They understood now they both did the same run. When you have 2 people that identify something in common, the likelihood that they're going to work better together goes up by 56%. This is factual. This is research. It's been done. Oh, wow. All you have to do is find out things you have in common. So right now, if you're a manager sitting at home, or a manager in an auction, manager of a trucking company, manager of a dealership, wherever you are in our ecosystem, and you want your team to start performing better, here's your challenge. Next team meeting, put everybody in there and pair them up and give each pair 60 seconds is plenty. So say, all right, Ty, you and I are together. You each have a notebook, and we're going to look at each other. How many things do we have in common? Ty, when were you born? Ty, where were you born? Ty, are you in this industry? And by the time you go through and you start asking all these questions, you come up, we're going to start landing on things we have in common. And what happens is people start communicating a different. I didn't know you used to have a dog named Red. I didn't know you were born in Joplin, Missouri. And you start putting all these things together. Next thing you know, bam, now meaningful conversations are coming out. You put those 2 guys in a truck to have a heart attack over the number 7 burrito, and now they have something in common. So now every time anything relates to that comes out, guess what they do? They pick up their phone and they call, they start talking to each other. They start watching football games. They start spending time together. This stuff doesn't happen by accident. There's actually a method to the madness.
Wow.
Mind blown,
That's encouraging, because mind blown, absolutely. And I think, I talk about this, we both talk about this industry a lot, and we talk about the challenges, which, we try to put the challenges with a little slash that says opportunity. And I think, it kind of blows my mind, because I've seen this at some larger auctions where I'm pretty confident that the main guy who's in charge has maybe never had a conversation with the people I'm dealing with out back. And it becomes more clear, more evident that I think I'm right, because this guy's just out here doing whatever he can do in the back. And I remember one time, I think I've told this story before, but I was doing something anyway down in Texas, and it's a Friday, and the Cars on the Move show on a Friday at noon. And so I'm driving through Austin, Texas, and I don't know you at the time. Didn't have any idea. So I'm going to find an auction. I always try to be at an auction, a dealership, somewhere where there's something happening. Trucks, cars. So anyway, I'm cruising through. I'm like, oh, wait, there's Odessa Austin's here. I'll find it, put it in the GPS, go, bang. So the show starts at noon. I get there like 11:30. And it's during the COVID thing, and nobody's around. The parking lot's completely empty, but there's a couple guys over here in the guard shack. So I pull in, run over. Hey, guys, I'm Ty, transport guy. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, just YouTube. You just have car. Oh, okay, yeah. How's your sale? These 2 guys in the back rattle off how many cars they ran this week, what percent of the sale was, how many dealers were there, how many online buyers were online, and they just start rattling, and we just have this most amazing back and forth with the guys in the guard shack. So probably over a year later, I run into you and find out that you were the GM of this auction.
At that time.
At that time. Well, and where I'm going with this is I think we were talking about this maybe last week or whenever we were talking about Chick-fil-A, and you can kind of get a different vibe when you walk into a Chick-fil-A versus when you walk into maybe a Wendy's or a McDonald's, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So I was thinking, seeing that at an auction and that level, and then tying that into what we're talking about today, that leadership that you always talk about. I mean, how did that guy at the guard shack know what was going on? Just completely amazing. And I've been hanging around physical auction and guard shacks for 20 plus years. And when you have that kind of talk coming out of the people who some might look at as the lowest or the least important, those people are honestly very knowledgeable and very important. And so kudos to you for that leadership. It really was apparent, very evident. So anyway, good job.
Well, that's what we do is we try to create foster a growth mindset. You touched on it earlier. The other thing was we created a sense of belonging and we made everybody feel important and valued. And we did this stuff every day at that auction. I'm doing it every day right now at the auction I'm at. And we talk to everybody. We tell people what's going on. So, and what you're saying is you're talking about the numbers. That's production, or it's profits, right? Or it's for processes. It's the 4 Ps I said don't talk about. But the reason why that stuck is because we put the people first. I showed those people that I cared about them so that when it came time to talk about the other things, and I gave them the spotlight and the stage. You notice I wasn't anywhere to be found. Why? Because I had all the confidence in the world for those guys to go talk to you. What do I need? You know what? If they can do the job, which kind of goes back to where we're at earlier with full circle with Chuck and Bob. Bob feels like he's threatened by Chuck, right? You know what? I'm not threatened by those people. Nobody should be threatened by somebody that's smarter, better, or whatever that is a means to your survival, not a threat to your existence. And we need these kind of people on a team. You need the Bobs that are slow. You need the Chucks that are fast, and you need the people that are in the middle. You need the well-calculated ones. You need the inspiring ones. That's how you build a team. Could you imagine if you had all 20 of your drivers driving your trucks, all thought the same, acted the same, and did everything the same? Your life would probably be boring as hell. Well, number one, there'd be no drama because there was nothing to do. You wouldn't have anything to do because, I mean, what are you going to do? They're all doing the same thing. And what happens when you put everybody together that all starts thinking alike? You lose innovation, you lose creativity.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, even in car hauling, absolutely. And I think it's kind of funny you bring that up because you think, well, it's truck drivers. They're just driving a truck. Well, no, not car hauling, not at all. And driving a truck is actually secondary. How do you get those cars on there? And how do you make sure they stay on there? And so what you'll find, there's, as you were talking, I was thinking of another driver that I had, Keith. Keith was very compartmentalized, very order. Everything had to be just right. The details to the assignment, the next job had to be, what time do you want me there? And, this is after years of go now, 5 years later. So what time do you want me there? Go now, go. But I think what you're hitting on is absolutely correct because either in the car hauling world, and this is what I tell everybody, you can take the same 9 cars, line them up by the same truck. Have you ever heard of Gauss-Jordan method? In college, I took this class called finite math. Still don't know anything about it.
I hated that class.
Gauss-Jordan method. But there was something, so you can take these 9, if you plug these 9 cars into this 9-car hauler truck and you do this Gauss-Jordan method formula, you can come out with, I think it was something stupid like 2,318 different ways to load those 9 cars on that 9-car hauler. Something ridiculous like that. So you take loading cars and hauling cars and you start looking at that. You talk about nobody's going to do it the same. That right there is the best indicator. There's no 2 people on planet Earth that are going to load those 9 cars the exact same way. None. 0 probability of that.
And more than likely,
that's my whole point.
More than likely the same guy that loads them. So when Chuck goes and loads 9 cars every time, I'll guarantee you if we broke it down, he's not loading all 9 cars the same every time. Something's going to interrupt his environment where he's going to do something different. And he's going to start learning, go, wow, next time if I do this, it might work better. And then he's going to start trying things. And then lo and behold, if I know based off of, if we just go straight off the personality and that Chuck was this red, there's probably going to be one time where he's probably going to try backing the car onto your 9-car hauler and he's going to wreck it. He's going to drop it off the edge. He's going to do something. Why? Because he's trying to do something too fast to get onto the next one. And then you got Bob, who's going to walk around and he's probably going to scratch his head and he's going to look at it. He's going to start backing it up and then he's going to stop, put on the parking brake, get out, assess the situation, make sure it's still good to go. And then he's probably going to continue going back, right? And then it's like, come on, Bob, just load it. And then, so same guy, same cars. You're like, Bob, just load the damn car, would you? And then you look at Chuck. He's like, Chuck, could you slow down a little bit? Now,
slow down.
This
exactly.
Is,
so right. So true.
True story. My dad and his brother, before they both passed away, they were getting pretty frail. their health was failing them really fast, and they had different issues going on. And I was just sitting there, just me being me. And, we were sitting on a bench outside a hotel somewhere in northern Minnesota. And I don't even know why we were there, but my other uncle lived in Minnesota. So we're all coming together. It was one of their birthdays or something. We're sitting outside and just having a conversation. And I just looked at both of them. I said, would either one of you have a problem if I just threw you in a bag and shook you up and just got one good one out? And they both died laughing. But that's sometimes that's what we want to do with employees, right? It's like, okay, can I just put you together and put you in a magic machine and pull you out and have one good employee? But that's not really fair to people. It's funny, but it's not fair. But each one of them brings in these different strengths. And as a manager, that's what you got to figure out is what they're good at. And you got to celebrate that. And then you got to put them in those positions to excel. You want to put them in areas where they're going to do well, not in areas where they're going to fail. So don't send Chuck to
all the buy here, pay here cars. He called all the buy here, Chuck, you the buy here, pay here guru. Go get them, boy.
And who did you put on the Highline cars or the expensive cars?
Yeah, we put them the
Bob
Ford, the Chevy, Toyota stores, and the Honda stores. You haul all the used cars to the new car store, Bob. Okay.
Yep. See, and
that,
there's
you're
a way to do that.
absolutely right. Yeah. It's very insightful. And I think, I know in my little world, my little transport world, that was a full-time job, making people get along, getting people to go to work. And I look back now and I think, this is a true story. I'm sure anybody that's owned a business or is a manager, you get that phone call at 10 p.m., somebody's got a problem. And you deal with it that right there, you deal with it the next day, whatever it takes to deal with these things. And I look at auctions and I really appreciate my relationship with you because you're in there, you're doing it, and you have real life stories. And I can't imagine the employee dynamic at an auction. There's a lot going on in hauling cars, but I think, well, what's going on at an auction? And I always in my mind, I always just imagine a gate. I always see the gate, and that's why, meet me at the gate. But I always see an auction. I always first thing I see is the gate, and that's where the show starts. On the auction side, I'm thinking, man, you got to follow a car through the entire process, and how many different people are touching that car? How many different people are in a team on that car? I look at CR riders at some of these auctions, and there's a team of them, and how are they getting along? And what are they doing? And they look like they're smiling, having fun, and kicking some butt. Or looks like they're about ready to have a fight today, And you get to the detail department. You get to the mechanic shop. I was just like, I don't know how an auction would deal with it. But anyway, I think it's very valuable. I feel like the takeaways for me are people first over profit. What are the other 4 Ps? People first, profit.
Yeah, people first before profit, products, processes, or plans. We all have an agenda. That's your plan. We all want to make profits. We all want to improve the processes. And then what we say, processes, plans, profits, and production. And that's the other big thing is production. Produce more. I need you to produce. But if you attack those things, you only go after those 4 things and you forget about the person, that's when you start getting into trouble. I was that person originally. That's why I titled the book that we mentioned earlier, You're Doing It Wrong, Stop Managing and Start Leading. Because I was the guy that was always managing. Everything for me was always about the last 4 Ps. I didn't understand about putting the people first. And I cared about people. I just didn't show them enough. And people never know how much you care about them until you show them how much you care about them, right? I cared a lot about the other P's. I had to show them how much you cared about the P.
And when I've heard you tell that story a couple of times, and every time you tell me, I'm like, how? You didn't know people first?
No, I didn't.
No, I didn't. So I'm thinking, okay, well, what did you know?
What did I do? I knew processes. I knew spreadsheets.
What were you doing?
I knew math. I knew how to do things. So I was really good at solving problems. I was very good at fixing things. I live in the things world. So like we go back to the disc, DISC. Yeah. The D's and the C's live in the things world. The I's and the S's live in the people world. So for I's and S's, inspiration and studies, people come naturally. It's easy for them. So somebody's listening to this podcast right now going, what do you mean you didn't get it? Well, go live in the D dominant world, the red world, or the C blue compliant world, and everything are things. And now it becomes a challenge. And I had to refocus the way I do things. A lot of people don't understand that I'm a dominant personality till they really get to know me, because I've trained myself, and this is self-awareness, to stop and slow down, put people first, people first, people first. I still have days when I'll fall back and just go into my natural state and I'll become overly dominant. And I have to be self-aware. I have to slow myself down and go, Rich, it's not all about the products. It's not all about the processes. It's not all about my plans. It's about the people. We got to get the people first.
So I appreciate you being vulnerable because I feel like I'm really learning something here. So I'm going to try to take it a little further. So I can understand that. But do you feel like that's just who you are as a person, or did it have the role that you were in from maybe somebody above you kind of pushing the numbers, the processes, the plans, everything except for the people?
Oh, absolutely. Up until recently, up until just a couple of years ago, everything I did was all big corporate. I was working for very large organizations that were all publicly traded companies or big equity money. And it was everything that came down was like, did you make enough money? What is your processes? What are your plans? These are things they'd cover in every conversation. And most of them, honestly, didn't care about me. If I died, they would have, by the time I was buried, they were going to have an ad in the newspaper or on the internet posting my job or up on a job board. Hey, we're looking for, I was an AGM. I became an AGM way too young. Why? Because I could solve problems. Hey, this guy's a problem solver. I was great at processes. And I remember the guy that hired me pulled me into his office one day. I even wrote this in my book. And he made me feel about this tall. And he said, Rich, when are you going to stop pissing off all my people? And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm doing everything you wanted. I got the cars parked. The sales numbers are through the roof, everything else. And that was one of the first times I ever had an aha moment. And we started talking and working on some different things to help develop me. But it still took me a long time. And I'm going to tell you, it took a long time for me to actually understand how I really came across. And I think I've told this story before. Sales manager came into my office. This is back at the auction in Austin. Sales manager comes into my office and says, hey, Rich, you wanted feedback? Yeah, I got feedback for you. Quit talking about this stuff all the time. Show us you care. I'm like, holy crap. It crushed my ego. It's a true story. It's one of the earlier podcasts, but I asked for that because here's what I told them. So if you're a manager, here's another piece of advice. If you haven't seen the other podcast, ask your team in your meetings before you go, hey, is there anything I can do different? And they're going to give you feedback eventually. It might not happen right away. You're looking for that feedback because you can grow. And what I would tell my team is if you don't tell me what you like or don't like about what I'm doing, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing and it's never going to change and you're going to continue to be miserable. I could tell them, I know for a fact I'm not perfect. I know everything I'm doing can't hit and just land just perfectly. And I've been doing this and using this for a lot of years now. People still come back to me and give me different feedback. It's like, that worked with this other group. It's not working with this group. People are so different. Loading the car, 9 people, loading the 9-car hauler, come up with 2,200 different ways to do it. Try 9 managers and go to 4 or 5 different companies. And now you get all the personalities and motives in there. You probably got 44,000 different ways that can go wrong or go right, depending on how you want to look at it.
Oh, man. Well, that's really good. I really am, like I said a minute ago, I think that's great that you're able to share your story and kind of be a little vulnerable, actually, real transparent. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Meet Me at the Gate. I hope the conversation has helped to fuel your drive and equip you with insights to steer your team towards success. Remember, the road to success is always under construction. And until next time, keep your engines revving and your gas tanks full.